Hello lovely art lovers! So in this tutorial we are going to paint this lovely lady with daisies, and the first shade we are going to use is Naples Yellow Reddish with Quinacridone Gold. You can only see the plate where those two shades are in the upper right corner of this video. But for the rest, I'm trying to, use these 10 shades in the plate as much as possible. And basically what I'm doing here is I'm painting wet on dry. I'm just trying to figure out where to put the highlights and the shades, but mostly with this first lightest color, I'm just going to go over this lady's face, and right now I'm painting her neck area and shoulder, where the shoulder will be or should be. And then the second layer, I didn't wait until the first dried, so it's still damp, and I'm just adding more saturated second layer of this same two shades, but just pointing out where the shadows will be. And that area is mainly just beneath the flower and just at the side of the lady's face where her hair falls, so that gives a little bit of a shadowed area. And around the eye and just below the lip is going to be a bit highlighted. Next shade I'm going on with is Quinacridone Coral, just to give a little bit of a redness to the cheek. And then I go back to the Naples Yellow Reddish plus Quinacridone Gold combination and balance the neck area with the face, because the face became very shadowed and contrasted by the neck was still pretty plain. Then I'm going in with pure yellow and I am painting the middle part of the flower. First I'm just dotting around with this lightest color, and then I'm going to give it a little bit of a shade, but only after it dried, so that the shaded parts are quite visible. Next shade I'm going in with this Sap Green, and I'm just outlining the eye area. I always say that I like to leave some white spots in the middle of the eye, so it will be more realistic. Even though I don't consider myself a realistic on Patreon, by the way, it's always, and my tires are important to €1 and $2 tires, so it's pretty cheap, and even realistic from the one tire you get like all some bits and pieces such as the coloring pages and stuff that are on my side, and I'm using the same exact shade. And thank you if you do the stems, join there. Then I'm going to use pure yellow and I will start painting the hair, and that is something that I don't like to make a big deal out of, so I'm just going to try to mimic the way the hair falls around her face, leaving some white spots. The lightest area I think is always the top of the head, especially if the light hits from above, but for most people I think that's the easiest way to paint. And of course the most contrasted should be around the face. This will reach towards the ears, and behind the ears it should be more and more lighter. It should be lighter and lighter. Yellow ochre is the middle shade we are going to use to shade the middle part of these daisies. And I always like to tell in my videos that the reason why it seems like I keep jumping from one area to the other, from the flower back to the hair or to the face or whatever, is because watercolor needs time to dry. Even it's kind of a quick dryer, it still needs time to dry. So while the middle of the flower dries, I'm painting the hair and back and forth. Now I'm using Perylene Purple, by Winsor Newton, and I'm going to create a harsher, more defined shadow wherever there needs to be. So that is on the neck area, you know, it's usually in the shadow, and below the flower, and etc, etc, wherever you see fit, just create some shadows. Using transparent umber mixed with yellow ochre, I'm going to create the middle shades of the hairline. Now I just want to mention here that I'm using Escoda Chronos size 4 for most of the painting, and I will switch to a smaller size contour brush, but for the most part. I know that most people are keen to know the technique behind this, however I would love to encourage you to try and experiment with it as much as you can. And basically what I'm doing here is just painting lines that are kind of like, in a way, hair would fall around the face, but there are so many ways you can paint hair or face or whatever you are painting that I think it's important to find your own style and how you love to paint hair. One thing I would like to say that I do paint a few hair pieces here and there, meaning the strings of hair, and most people don't recommend that. And the reason why I do that is because it looks more loose and free. Whereas if you just paint a block of hair together and no strings of hair separately, then it looks much less natural. And as I mentioned it before, this is the middle tones, so we are still going to go in with quite heavy, dark, transparent umber. And I did switch to this contour brush. I'm going to look up the name of it and mention it in the description below so that you know what I'm using. This is a new brush, I'm in love with it. It's not by Escoda, it's by Raphael. And the big difference that happened with this brush is that it has short bristles. Unlike all of the brushes that I owned in the past 10 years, and it works beautifully. It's a size 2 brush, and so it's not a very thin one. I used to work with from 2 to 10 page 0, 10-0, and this is my favorite. This is a size 2 brush, and that's the only difference, I think. However, I still have to look it up because I have no idea. I just bought it for fun, so that I would try to work with it or use it for something, and now this is the brush that I use for everything when it comes to contouring and using, you know, smaller line brushes. This video is, by the way, in real time, however I cut out all of the parts that are boring, which by that I mean that every time I reach for the water, for example, or when I reach for a paint that is not on the screen. And I would like to ask you, how do you like this? Is this better? This video would be an hour and a half long video without cutting it, and it's 20 minutes this way, so I think it's kind of worth to cut it. And by the way, I'm using Quinacridone Coral and transparent umber to paint the lips. And what I'm doing is I paint the upper lips completely and the bottom lips only the corners, and align it with a little bit of a lighter part. And now now let's turn back to the petals, and I'm painting with the lightest possible shade of indigo. As you probably know, indigo is quite a dark, deep color, and what it is for is you can use it for shading with the deepest, darkest kind of bluish tone but grayish color. And so I'm using just the lightest amount possible here, and we will go deeper and deeper, layer by layer. My thought process here is just to paint the ends and the where it is closer to the middle as well, just to decorate it and give some initial details of how I want it to look like in the end. Now I will speed it up for the second flower, as I'm just doing the same thing again, but it would take forever for me to finish. And with transparent umber and this contour brush that I raved about a lot just a few minutes ago, I'm going to paint the darkest area of the middle area. I don't know what's that called in English. And that's going to be our darkest shade for that area at least. After that, we are going back to the indigo, painting the middle tones. So that's our second layer, and we will still have a third layer where we give the final definition to these beautiful flowers. So for now, we are going to use the middle shades, and I'm just going over exactly the same place where I painted the lightest tones, but maybe a little bit closer to the middle part. The ends are not going to be any darker because, you know, the light hits from there, so it should be a little bit lighter, I think. And I kept just a little bit of place between the middle yellowish part of the flower and between the petals. And then I will do two things sped up with this flower. One is that using the lightest shade possible, I'm going to go in with the petals a little bit towards the middle, and then I'm going to use the darkest shade of indigo just right around the middle yellowish bit. Using turquoise, the helio, I'm going to go and paint the background wet onto wet, but you can use wet on dry as well if you feel confident enough. I think one of my biggest mistakes is I never feel confident enough to just go ahead and do crazy things like that. So I just like to make sure that I have plenty of time to go and paint the details and the background basically. For this I'm using Escoda Perla size 10 brush. It's a lot bigger than the size 4, so I can go ahead and work on the larger areas with the body of the, so if I press the brush down, and with the tip of the brush I can go ahead and paint the sections in between the petals, which would generally need a smaller brush. So that's why I love Escoda Perla and generally just the Escoda line, is because it has a full body, so you can paint larger areas, and all of these brushes have a very pointy end, so you don't need to switch brushes if you don't want to. So I'm going to speed up the rest of the background because I think it's super boring to watch someone to paint the background for hours and hours. But please let me know if you think otherwise, if you think I should keep it just in real time for the whole video. So using transparent umber, I'm painting the eyebrows, and I used the same shade for giving some definition around the eyelids as well, and I used some middle tone, so I wouldn't go very dark because then it kind of looks like, you know, it's too heavy, especially comparing to the lightness of the girl's hair. Using Perylene Violet or Perylene Purple, I'm going to go ahead and paint some extra shadow below the face, so around the neck. And slowly but surely our face and daisies are coming together to make a painting. But the most exciting part for me, which is the dotting, is still ahead of us. But before I do that, I will just use the same Perylene Violet or Perylene Purple to create some shadows in the ears. I think it's important to match the face and the neck and the ears. So using the darkest possible transparent umber, I'm painting the nostrils. And then with turquoise, the helio, I'm going to go and paint this little tiny bit of gap between the flower and the face, which is in the background color. This is done, you can see how her face looks like, where her face was. Before this, you couldn't really possibly see how her face kind of where it starts when it ends. So now it's time for the dotting, using the same turquoise, the helio that I used for the background, but a little bit more concentrated. I'm painting dots and snail dots, I don't know how to say. And I did speed up this part as well, because this is my favorite part when the whole painting is ready and I'm just playing around with the dots here. But this is also the most boring thing ever to watch in real time, I think. So I'm just going to go ahead and speed it, but let me know if you really hate it as I speed things up. And then I will just, you know, show you the uncut hour-and-a-half long version of this, or possibly another video. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope you liked it. Bye bye.